Hare Krishna to everyone, and welcome to this very special presentation today. For those unaware, we're going through the Bhakti Vaibhava course in Washington, D.C., and we came up to the 5th canto, and we've studied the first 15 chapters without too much trouble. But then getting to the 16th chapter and beyond, devotees started asking me questions that I could not answer about the structure of the universe, etc. So then I turned to the Bhaktivedanta Institute for Higher Studies and my good friend, the director, Brahma Tirtha Prabhu, and he has agreed to give us, I don't know exactly what it'll be, but something like it's the Mysteries of the Sacred Universe is the title, and hopefully it'll answer all of our questions from chapter 16 to chapter 26. But at least an overview that'll give us much more of a grasp of what we're going through as we're going through these chapters in the Bhagavatam. So thank you so much for joining us today, and for those who are listening to the recording afterwards. And I'll ask Brahma Tirtha Prabhu to introduce his colleagues, and we will get started.
For those of you who read the 5th canto, you'll find it somewhat bewildering, and that is part of the pedagogy of the Bhagavatam. Certain parts, according to Bhaktivinoda Thakur, are intended to be bewildering. And we find, like for example, in the Isha Upanishad, we find contradictory statements. I am everywhere, but I'm just here. And statements like this that are paradoxical, the intention of paradoxical statements in any scripture is for the purpose of making us think deeper and go go deeper into our understanding. And we find this in every religious tradition, such as the Bible. There are many paradoxical statements. And even Arjuna in the Gita was confused by some of the paradoxical statements of Krishna. And Krishna, which is it? Is it personal or impersonal? What's going on? And so the 5th canto, you might say, is the epitome to make us go deeper. Now, my dear late friend Sariputta, one of the true rare geniuses of the world, studied the 5th canto and wondered about it. And devotees were quite bewildered. And Prabhupada himself asked several of his disciples, why don't you rewrite it? He said, and Prabhupada called for pundits because Prabhupada's expertise in Sanskrit was not technical astronomy. So he asked for pundits, and finally there was one pundit with a reputation that really could help. And devotees went looking for him, and he had just died. And every other pundit that came in wasn't, well, let's to say it politely, they weren't very helpful. So nevertheless, Prabhupada obviously understood the complexity of the universe, and he wanted his disciples to expand upon it. And he told them, you can rewrite it. That was the intention. Expand upon these complexities. And that was a mission for Prabhupada's scientists. At the time the BI formed in mid-70s, Prabhupada sent a letter out, send us all your pundits, PhDs to help us. You know, all five devotee scholars. I was one of them. There was just hardly any of us. So now, with so many devotee scholars, we have a chance to roll up our sleeves and go deeper. Sariputta began that work in the 5th canto some 30 years ago. And as he explored it, I remember being with him when he kept telling me these eureka moments. And he took a few verses of the 5th canto, and he wrote 2 books on it. One book, and these are available online. All of Sariputta's books are back in print on Amazon now. One of them was Vedic Cosmography, and the other was Mysteries of the Sacred Universe. And these books, the mysteries discuss the larger picture. The Mysteries of the Sacred Universe, I'll give an example of what he did. He took just verses, half a dozen verses or so, and really rolled up his sleeve and said, what does this mean? We have this flat earth. It's talking about this boom mandala, looks like a plane. And he realized, wait, it's talking about the orbits of the planets are flat. So he did some math, not complicated math. This is freshman in college math. And he realized that if we look at the universe from a geocentric point of view, instead of a heliocentric, it doesn't make a difference. We can be moon-centric. We can mathematically make any point the reference point. All of a sudden, it makes sense. And if you use the standard number for yagnas, he could calculate how far Mars is from Venus and all of this. Scientists didn't know that until the middle of the 19th century. How is that possible? And then he wrote a book on it, among other things. And so the fifth canto, the message is that the fifth canto is something for the next millennium we'll be studying. And as we study, we can get deeper and deeper into it, and new correlations with astronomy occur, new mysteries are resolved, and the main point is it's a work in progress. Now to bring us to the introduction to Murali Gopal. I have the privilege of serving on the board of directors of the Bhakti Center in New York. And while visiting there some little over a half a decade ago, I was sitting with the brahmacharis and just asking them, well, tell me about each of you. And one of them said, oh, yeah. I said, what do you do? He says, well, I like dancing and things, but I also have a PhD in quantum physics, experimental physics. I said, huh? I said, have you ever read Sariputta's books? He said, oh, yeah. And we talked about it. I realized, my God, he understood the books. And I said, what a gem. Meanwhile, back in Florida, we were reprinting Sariputta's books, several of his friends and colleagues together. We were trying to get them all in print again. And I brought Murali Gopal down to meet with us. And we realized that let's revive the Bhaktivedanta Institute as Prabhupada originally intended it, to deal with issues of cosmography, cosmology, and above all, consciousness studies. And from these meetings, we had a revival of the Bhaktivedanta Institute. Now, there are other branches of the Institute, and they do wonderful things, and we try to work very cooperatively with them. Yet we felt some of the core mission really needed a lot more attention than it was given. And a year and a half ago, we had a conference. We said, let's gather all the PhDs, as Prabhupada called for in a letter to Rupanuga in the mid-70s. And we called for all the PhDs, and 50 from all over the world, 5 continents showed up. 400 people came for our opening session. We had very famous scientists, which Prabhupada, in the October 1977 Life Comes from Life conference in Vrindavan, we had some very famous scientists come there. Prabhupada wanted a dialogue with them. Every night, Prabhupada was too sick to go. He'd call us into his room for the Sankirtan report. And he'd say, so what did they say? What did you say? What were the arguments? He wanted to hear it. And we shared it with Prabhupada. And he was really quite happy about it. So to continue that tradition, we set up this conference. And now we're continuing with the BI. We have a website. I'm going to put our website. It just went live 2 weeks ago, to let you know what we're doing. All our biographies and everything's there. I'll type it into the chat right now. And you can contact us if you like. Now to go more to Murali Gopal. Murali Gopal has his PhD in experimental physics. For the last 3 years, he's been taking the most advanced courses in theoretical physics at NYU, the equivalent of postdoc work. He does some postdoc work with a SUNY professor, and he is a fantastic breakdancer. So there are YouTube videos. You can Google it if you want to see it. I'm not sure if it'll embarrass him or not, but if it does, then I've accomplished what I just wanted to do. But a fantastic dancer, fantastic person, and really understands what Sariputta was trying to do with the 5th canto. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Murali Gopal. I wanted to give a context here and let him introduce you to the 5th canto. There'll be plenty of time for questions near the end, especially if I end my overly long introduction quickly. If while he's speaking, you have any questions, you can on Zoom hit the raise your hand button. If you don't know where it is, you go to the upper right-hand corner. It's actually it's in the chat section, I believe. I'm not actually sure where it is. I'm going to let Raja Vihari tell you where the raise your hand is. But, oh, I know. You just hit participants on the bottom, and it shows up. And over there, there's a place where you can click on your own icon and raise your hand. And if you raise your hand, we'll try to call on you at the first break. With further ado, I turn it over to Murali Gopal. Murali, it's all yours. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Bruce. Yeah, thank you for this opportunity to...
One other thing before you start, Murali, this is Raja Vihari. The other thing you do, maybe someone won't find the raise your hand thing, just write something in the chat box and we'll monitor the chat box. Go ahead, Murali.
Okay. Yeah, if you could monitor the chat box, that'd be great, because I'd like to focus on the other things. So thank you very much for this opportunity to be with all of you. It's a privilege to be able to speak to you on the 5th canto. It is quite a difficult subject matter, but I hope that after today it will be a little bit more accessible. Let me share with you my PowerPoint presentation, because you will need visuals here. Visuals are very, very important. Okay, so let me go into the slideshow and begin in the beginning. Okay. So let us start with the benefits, because this is going to be a very difficult thing. So you want to know what the benefits are to keep you going throughout it all. At the very beginning of this whole talk on cosmography, in the 16th chapter of the 5th canto, Shukadeva Goswami tells Maharaj Parikshit what is the benefit of him hearing what he's going to explain. And he says that when the mind is fixed upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead and its external feature made of the material modes of nature, the gross universal form, this mind is brought to the platform of pure goodness. And in that transcendental position, one can understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudeva. So just by listening to, by listening to this, you will be able to get your mind more into the mode of pure goodness. So that's good. This is not your typical astronomy class. That's what. And at the end of all this, at the very, on the 26th chapter, when he has completed all, he says that if one reads the description of this external form of the Lord with great faith, or if one hears about it or explains it to others to propagate Bhagavad Dharma or Krishna consciousness, his faith and devotion in spiritual consciousness, Krishna consciousness, will gradually increase. So by hearing this description, you will both get your mind more into the mode of pure goodness, and also your faith and devotion in spiritual consciousness will gradually increase. That's a good thing to know before you go into it. So even if you don't understand anything, like just by hearing it, you have benefited. So let us start with the big picture. Most of the features of the Srimad Bhagavatam creation, which have been told in the second canto, you might remember, are pretty much understood on a general level without much conflict. We know that there's the Vaikuntha Lokas, where the biggest part is the Goloka Vrindavan. Then there's Mount Kailash with Lord Shiva right in between the Vaikuntha Loka and the spiritual and the material world. There's Brahmajyoti in between there. In this material world, Karanodakshina Vishnu or Mahavishnu is creating all the material universes that are emanating from the pores of his body. And in the smallest one there, there's where we are, this universe, where Lord Garbhodakashaji Vishnu creates Lord Brahma, and Lord Brahma, in turn, creates the rest of the material universe within here. Now that we know that this universe, in the fifth canto, it is said it is divided into two parts: the heavenly region and the subterranean region. Right? This universe, the Brahmanda, is divided into two by this disc that is called Bhumandala. Bhu means earth, and mandala means region or disc, or has different meanings, but you say like the earth disc. And this Bhumandala is, it has these features that is called, these concentric rings that are called islands and oceans, dvipas and oceans. So here's a zoom in into that. And you will notice how in the center there is the very famous Mount Meru, which we'll talk about, this huge mountain. And then there's these concentric rings of ocean, island, ocean, island, ocean, island. The diameter of this Bhumandala, one thing to keep in mind, is huge. It's a little bit over the orbit of Uranus. So it's huge. The inner portion of it is called Saptadvip. Saptadvip means the 7 islands. And these 7 islands go, as I mentioned, in terms of island, ocean, island, ocean, island, ocean. After these, the Saptadvip, there are 3 more regions. One that is called Loka, or inhabited. Then there is the second region, which is called Kanchani Bhumi. If you can see it down here, there's a, and then after that, there's this third region that is called Alokavarsha, or the uninhabited region. And the inhabited region and the uninhabited region are separated by this big mountain that is called Loka Mountain. This Loka Mountain is said to be huge. It goes from Bhumandala all the way to the pole star, or Dhruvaloka. Here's a quick video. This was done by Sariputta Prabhu. This center island is called Jambudvip, as we will see in a second. That's where we are, right there. This is Mount Meru, this cone-like mountain. And on top of it, there's the cities of Lord Brahma and the guardians of the directions. That is a salt ocean around Jambudvip. And then there's a series of rings of ocean, island, like that. All the way up to this Kanchani Bhumi, the golden land. And then we see here, this is this gray mountain range. That's the Loka mountain. Right, and then we take a look. All right, so here, that's like the big picture. As I mentioned before, it goes from island to ocean. The features of it is that the island and the ocean that surrounds it both have the same thickness, but the island that surrounds that ocean will have twice the thickness. So if you notice, the rings got bigger and bigger as they went out, and that's because of this ratio, that the island, the ocean that surrounds it, have the same thickness, but the island that's around the ocean here, that is twice the thickness. The last island that we see in Saptadvip, right? In the last island, it has this mountain range that is called the Manasotara mountain that goes right in the middle of it. This Manasotara mountain will link is linked with the orbit of the sun. Here's a picture of it. So it is said that the chariot of the sun has the axle going from Mount Meru, right here in the middle of Bhumandala, all the way up to Manasotara mountain. It is important to note that this wheel here is it's talked about in a very interesting way. It says that like the spokes are the different months, and the hub is divided into the four time periods of the year, like the Chaturmasya and all that. So it's not, it doesn't give it as a physical wheel, but more in an abstract kind of way. This is more to scale. Yeah, this is what it really looks like. Sorry. Here's the Manasotara mountain on the way, and Mount Meru is all the way down in the back there. Now, this feature of doubling the size of the island it only goes up to Saptadvip. After Saptadvip, then Loka mountain has a different thickness. It is said that the thickness of Loka mountain is the same thickness is the same radius as the radius of the Manasotara mountain. And then Kanchani Bhumi is the thickness is actually going all the way out to the middle of Bhumandala. And that is where Loka Loka mountain is. The interesting thing about Loka Loka mountain is that it says that it blocks the rays of the sun, so that the sun never goes into this Aloka Varsha. So this Aloka Varsha, this uninhabited region, is there because it is said that it is so dark that you can't see anything. When Krishna went with Arjuna to go and rescue the sons of the Brahmana, you might remember that it is said that they crossed to this region where it was like so dark that the horses couldn't go any further, and Krishna had to send his darshan chakra in front of them so they could go through it. Well, they were going through this Aloka Varsha. That's where it was going through, right? Yeah. So let's keep going. Talking about rings, this is the Lord of the Rings. If you read,
that must have been Brahmatirtha's help with that this power.
We try to keep it light every now and then because this thing is so heavy.
Okay, this is going to be a bad one. I plead the fifth.
Terrible.
Oh, okay.
All right. Okay. Keep going, or else Brahmatirtha's going to tell the joke. Go ahead, Murali.
Okay, so if you read the description of Saptadvip, the 7 islands, you will see that you have the different islands: Jambudvip, Plakshadvip, Shamalidvip, Kushadvip, Kraunchadvip, Shakadvip, and Pushkardvip. Each one of these is named after some different thing. Most of them after trees. Like Jambu is the rose apple tree, Indian fig trees, the cotton tree, like that. It will talk to you also about the worship. Each one worships different aspects of the Lord. Like in Plakshadvip, for example, they worship the Lord in his feature of the sun. In Shamalidvip, the moon, and so on. And around these dvipas, there's a surrounding ocean, which which are not your usual oceans. The ocean that surrounds us is the one of salt water, but then there's ones of sugarcane juice, liquor, ghee, milk, yogurt, and fresh water. So these are very different. If you might have heard about pastimes happening in the milk ocean, right? Well, here's the Shiroda, the milk ocean. And you will also read about, I'm trying to condense 11 chapters in less than 1 hour. So please, forgive me if I'm not going into all the details here. Each one of these dvipas has a unique feature that makes it. For example, in Shamali Dvip, Garuda lives there in the Shamali tree. In Pushkar Dvip, there's a lotus flower with 100 million golden petals, and it said that Lord Brahma, sits there and is worshipped there. Good. This is why we haven't been contacted by intelligent life from other planets.
Okay, another good one.
Now, it is said that Bhumandala is described to be like a lotus, and here's a picture of a lotus so that you can see, why it is such. This pericarp at the very center of it looks like Bhumandala, right? Like Mount Meru, and if you look at the structure of the petals, they sort of look like they're making circles around it, sort of concentric circles around it. So that is why it is described as a lotus. Now, interesting things, you will see that here they're going to throw you so many different numbers. Like, for example, the idea they will tell you that Jambudvip, the center island, where Mount Meru, sometimes it's called Mount Meru, sometimes it's called Mount Sumeru. It's the same thing. Here, then you have that it's 100,000 yojanas. The yojana is the unit of measurement. Sariputta Prabhu did a lot of research. There's different types of definitions for the yojana, and sometimes you will see that it tells you that the yojana is maybe like more towards 5 miles, and sometimes it's more towards 8. In the Bhagavatam, it seems like it takes more like the 8 miles per yojana, while in texts like the Surya Siddhanta and all the Jyotish, they take more the 5 miles per yojana. Prabhupada generally took 8 miles per yojana, so that's so that you can understand it. Now, so this Jambudvip has a diameter of 100,000 yojanas. The diameter of the Earth, just so that you can have an idea of it, right, is about 1,000 yojanas. That's the Earth's diameter. Notice how small our entire Earth is compared to Jambudvip, right? It's 100 times smaller. Now, Mount Meru, if you look at the Jyotish Shastras, the Jyotish Shastras have always had this, difficulty understanding the Puranas, because the people who work with the Jyotish, even in medieval times, they were always going, asking the Pauranikas, those who follow the Puranas, what do you mean by all this? And I'm just going to be throwing you right now all of what the Bhagavatam says, and later I'm going to try to give you some of the understandings that we have developed on it. So if your mind is starting to go like this at this moment, don't worry. We'll analyze it later. Like, how is all this actually making sense? But do note that you're going to be your mind is going to be blown if this is the first time that you're hearing about it, and it's okay. It's okay for your mind to be blown away. So just for comparison here, as I said, Earth diameter is 1,000 yojanas, Jambudvip is 100,000 yojanas. The way that the Jyotish Shastras have tried to understand it has been by saying that Mount Meru is maybe the Earth's polar axis, and some historians of the Hindu literatures say that it might also be the Pamir Mountains. Be it as it may, you know, these are just interpretations of it. We'll look more into different understandings later. In the center, right here, at the top and the center of Mount Meru, is something called Brahmapuri, the city of Brahma. This is not, by the way, this is not Satyaloka. This is a different place. Now, some people have a hard time saying, like, well, if Lord Brahma is there, you know, is he not in Brahma in Satyaloka? Well, yeah, you know, like you can be in many different places. The CEO of a big multinational company, you know, he can have many different houses. He can have many different in different places of the world, and he can have many different offices in different parts of the world. So you know, he could go to this Brahmapuri, which is on top of Mount Meru, and he can also be in Pushkaradvip, which is the last of the 7 islands of Saptadvip, and he can also, you know, be in Brahmaloka, in Satyaloka, which is at the top of the universe. So yeah, he can just go back and forth. There's no problem with that. Around this Brahmapuri, it is said to be the cities of the Lokapalas, the guardians of the directions. So you have Kuvera, Vayu, Varuna, Yama, Agni, etc. You will this on top of Mount Meru is falling this cascade. This is the Ganga, which is coming from the heavenly planets and hitting here. And from here, it separates into 4 branches in the 4 directions. This descent of the Ganges is also explained in the 5th canto. It says that it's coming. If you remember, the Ganges was created when Lord Vamanadev hit the covering of the universe with his toe, and then the water from the coastal ocean started seeping in. So that one goes and first hits Satyaloka, and then it starts going down through the Tapalokam, Janalokam, Harloka, which are places where the different rishis live, people that have a lot of mystical power and where they're just doing yagyas and meditation all the time. Goes down to Dhruvaloka, right? When it goes down to Dhruvaloka, keeps going down to Saptarishi. Saptarishi can also be said to be the Ursa Major or the Big Dipper in Western astronomy.
Murali, Gopal, I'm going to just pause a second to say we got about half a dozen questions. Some of them are big picture questions.
Okay.
And when was the right time for us to start introducing these big picture questions? Because I mean, or how many more slides do you have? I just want to.
I have a lot of slides, so if
I know.
let us take these questions. Let us take these questions.
Okay. Is there any other slides that kind of give the bigger picture you want to point to first? Because the questions all revolve around that.
No. Let's take those big picture questions.
Okay. I'm gonna begin. First question. Do we need to enter another dimension to realize these regions? Are they in the spiritual realm or still within the realm of modern science? And the same questioner says, does Garuda simultaneously manifest in Vaikuntha and Salmali?
Okay, so let's see about that. I'll go back just a moment here to show you. this this one here. So if you notice, I talked first that there is the Vaikuntha Loka. This is the spiritual world. This is where people go to when they have finally learned the art of serving the Lord with unalloyed devotion. Here is where we are in the material world, right? And so this is spiritual up here. This is material down here. Material science, material everything, it goes when we're talking about this universe right here. This is where science can still have something to say. When we leave this universe, when we go up to here, like we no longer know how the laws of nature work. As far we can talk about the laws of nature like that right here within this universe. There was more to your question. You're muted, Prabhu. Prabhu, you're muted.
Do we need to reconcile with other dimensions?
It could be that within this universe there are different dimensions. It is possible. This is one of the things that we're currently looking at the Bhaktivedanta Institute for Higher Studies to see whether we need to include extra spatial dimensions or dimensions of different sorts. Okay. But that is one point. Yes. Okay.
And the next one is let me see. Well, let's see. How do we reconcile the dimensions of our saltwater ocean with the one mentioned in the Bhagavatam? And follow-up question was, what about the different varshas on Jambu Dweep?
Okay, I will talk a little bit about that later on, but just so that you can have understanding right here. We are looking at this moment at different possibilities. One is that there could be extra spatial dimensions, that we just don't have access to. Another is that it is possible that we are only able to like, just as our eyes can only see within a certain amount of the spectrum of light, right? Maybe it is possible. This is just some ideas. It is possible that our minds are only able to detect, to perceive within a certain range of the modes of material nature, and that these other places are outside that range. They're more into the mode of goodness or more into the mode of passion or ignorance, and we are only able to see a certain amount of it. Or it may be that at this moment we are in a place of lockdown, Kali Yuga lockdown.
There's two people have their hand raised. One is Sundar Gopal Prabhu, if he could go off of mute and ask his question, and then Andy after that.
Gopal Prabhu for this nice presentation, and I'm not sure if you are going to cover this part, but I wanted to know if you can explain how the day and night happens on earth as per Bhagavatam. I understand, the sun moves in Antariksha from Lord Indra's place in east to south to Lord Yama's place to Varuna's place, and then in the north to Lord Soma or moon. But so that makes the one day of the demigods. But how the day and night happens, that I couldn't understand so far. I just like to understand that part.
Okay. This is a good question. It deals with the movements of the sun. I will just touch upon it in this presentation, but but if you want, I can at the end, if we still have some time, and if people still have the bandwidth capacity, I have a couple of slides that go specifically into that.
Thank you.
Yes. We may ask you for an encore sometime. Go ahead, Ed.
Yeah, if I could, I just want to point out, during the coronavirus, I've been watching physics videos from Stanford with Leonard Susskind. You probably heard of him.
Yeah, he's super famous.
And he just mentioned in one that their current estimation is that past the observable universe, which is as far as you could go. So if you send a telescope as far as you could go and looked as far, like as possible, they think that the region of the universe outside what is possible to observe is at least 1,000 times bigger than what they can observe. So that's just their estimate. So that agrees completely with the slide that you're showing. It's just out there, and it's physically impossible to see it because of the horizon. You understand that a lot more than I do because of physics. But so this is so far I've seen nothing really that confused me too much.
Okay, that's great. Wonderful.
Thank you, Andy. Why don't you continue, Murali?
Okay, so let us continue, because there's, as I said, there's so much to talk about in this, but I'm really trying to condense it as much as possible.
Maybe we'll do one more question, because I think this fits in. Sundara Gopal has a question. Do you want to unmute
Prabhu,
and say something?
I already asked. It is the same question that I asked.
Same question. Okay.
Yeah,
so I want to make. So I'll lower your hand. Okay. I thought there was clarification. Murali, it's all yours. But while I'm interrupting, let me say add another thing. When I met Murali Gopal, and he understood that he really was rolling up his sleeves, getting into Sadaputa. I shared with him the one lament Sadaputa Prabhu had, and he expresses many times that he never knew Sanskrit. I mean, he knew Devanagari just from sitting in Bhagavatam classes. I mean, he could just learn it that way. But to actually know Sanskrit requires a study. He said, boy, I really need some Sanskrit to get in the fifth canto. So we sent Murali Gopal back to school for 6 semesters up through advanced Sanskrit by the top instructor in America at this time, which is at Columbia University. So he could get up to speed. But in a bigger picture, and we'll talk about this at the end, why is the fifth canto being presented? And the purpose of the fifth canto being presented, and this is the point being made by Sukadeva Goswami, the purpose of the fifth canto is one and only one purpose, to take us to Krishna, like the whole Bhagavatam does. Now, you might ask, how does the fifth canto take us to Krishna? It's in several ways, and at the end we'll get into this more. It's certainly just like when Krishna revealed the universal form to Arjuna, it kind of shocked him into a certain reality. Oh my God, this is bigger than me. And it gives us a certain humility. In a similar way, when the fifth canto is like a demigod's view, just like a momentary glance at what the universe could look like if we had the eyes of a demigod. Murali Gopal referred to, our eyes only see such a narrow area of the electromagnetic spectrum, let alone what's beyond the electromagnetic spectrum. But there's such a small area just between infrared and ultraviolet, not much. So imagine if we could see more. One of the little tricks I do for my grandkids is I build a clown chamber, and so they could see the cosmic rays that are for every moment going through our body and going through everything. And when I show them in this chamber, they can see the trails of cosmic rays. I mean, that's all there? It's like a wake-up moment for them. And that's my intention. So there's so much that we don't see. So the fifth canto gives us a chance to see it. At the same time, in the mood of the universal form in the Gita, it gives us that humility. I mean, here we are. One time, just a little Prabhupada story as an aside, Prabhupada was chastising one of his senior leaders, and he said to him, there are so many planets in the universe, and so many planets, so many people, and then on Earth there's so many countries and so many billions of people, and then in this country there's so many states and cities going on, and then within our state there's so many temples, and within our temples there's so many people, and then there's you, and you think you're so important. And it was like one of the top senior people in the movement. So Prabhupada gave him that, I'm shortening the story, but gave him that, that to add some humility. So part of the fifth canto does, I mean, I find it personally for me, does give me some humility. And then with that humility, we have some awe, but in deeper and more profound ways, which we'll get to. The purpose of the fifth canto. That's the overall theme. That's why the TOVP is being done. The whole purpose is like the rest of the purpose of Bhagavatam, the fifth canto. With that, I'm going to turn this back to Murali Gopal. Please continue.
Okay, so as I was just explaining, the Ganges goes down from the top of the universe all the way down to Saptarishi, which is the Ursa Major, or the Big Dipper that we call. Right there, it is said that with millions of these airplanes, the water is carried, it starts going back again down, falling all the way down to Earth. Here, when it hits Earth, it hits right on top of Mount Meru, and it divides into 4 branches. The southern branch is called the Alakananda River, and that one is the one that we see as the Ganges in India. So here's a little video so that you can see. Here's the the city of Brahma and the city of the Lokapalas, the different guardians of the directions. And we're going down, one of these branches of the river goes down all the way, getting the jambu tree there. All right, so let us look a little bit more into this Jambudvip, this central island that has where we're located, and you will see in the middle is this yellow circle, which represents Mount Meru, right? You have the dimensions for all of these different countries, these different varshas. There are 9 varshas. Jambudvip is divided into 9 varshas. The southernmost varsha is Bharat Varsha. This is where we are, right? And here's the different branches of the river that go, and the different dimensions that are in them. These ones are 9,000 yojanas. This one here is 34,000 yojanas. All of this is in tens of thousands of yojanas. Again, remember, the Earth's circumference is 3,125 yojanas. That's the circumference of the Earth. So in comparison to that, notice that Bharat Varsha, right? The Bharat Varsha is separated from Kimpurusha Varsha by the Himalayas. And these Himalayas, it is said that that this length here is 60,000 yojanas. Again, remember, the Earth's circumference is 3,000 yojanas, but it is said that the length of the Himalayas is 60,000 yojanas, and the height of this is 10,000 yojanas, and the width of the Himalayas is 2,000 yojanas. Now, if you take the Mount Everest, which is the highest peak on Earth and is located in the Himalayas, it really only goes to 0.7 yojanas. Only 0.7, not 10,000. And if you go, if you say like, well, maybe the water level, it varied between from the Mariana Trench, which is the lowest point on Earth that we can think of. It's in the Pacific. It's deep down, the Mariana Trench. and take it all the way up to Mount Everest, I think it amounts to just like, 1 or 2 yojanas compared to 10,000 yojanas. So clearly there is something more at hand here than what is than meets the eye. Also, it is said that Bharatvarsha is the fruitivities. It's the place where the humans live. The other place is only when when the demigods are finished with their pious credits, the last little amount of that they have, they take it and they use it by living 10,000 years in one of these places. This is called the earthly heavens, Baumasvarga, which is different from Divyasvarga, the celestial heavens. And so after they finish off completely all their pious credits, then they take birth finally in Bharatvarsha. Now, just for comparison again, this Mount Meru is said to be 100,000 yojanas high. 32,000 yojanas is the diameter of this. 16,000 yojanas, the lower diameter. And it is said that 16,000 yojanas are below ground and 84,000 are above ground. Now, in comparison, just so that you can understand this, the International Space Station, did anybody see the docking of Elon Musk on the International Space Station, just a couple of weeks ago? Anyway, so the International Space Station is around 44 yojanas above sea level. 44 yojanas compared to 84,000 yojanas, which is this Mount Meru, right? The geocorona, which is several radii of the Earth, is only 77 yojanas. So when we're talking about Mount Meru being 84,000 yojanas high, you're really saying this is extremely high. It is basically let me show you here. The distance from here to the moon is 30,000. It's almost 30,000 yojanas. 30,000 yojanas. It's almost three. It's almost that what it's meaning is that Mount Meru is almost three times the distance from here to the moon. Just so that you can get a perspective of how high Mount Meru really is. Almost 3 times the distance from here to the moon. All of these will help you feel good about yourself. The vastness of the universe makes me feel so small and insignificant. Yep. So not only humble, but it also makes you feel good about yourself. Okay. It is said that in each one of these different varshas that make up Jambudvip, there's an avatar there, that is worshipped there. So, for example, here in Kimpurusha Varsha, that is right above Bharatvarsha, it is Lord Ramachandra, the avatar. And who is the worshipper there for him? Hanuman. Hari Varsha, which is above that, is the avatar is Nrsimhadev, and Prahlad Maharaj is the one who worships him. And in Bharatvarsha, the avatar of Bharatvarsha is Narayan Rishi, and the worshipper is Narada Muni. If you remember, at the very beginning of the Bhagavatam, we hear Vyasadeva paying his obeisances to Narayan Rishi. Right? Now, as I mentioned here, aside from Bharatvarsha, all the other are heavenly regions. And the inhabitants there, they live for 10,000 years. Their bodies are like thunderbolts. They have the strength of 10,000 elephants. And they have sex until 1 year of life remains, where they get pregnant. And that's when you know that your time is up. It is said that in these regions of Jambudvip, the Upadevas enjoy in the 4 lakes that surround Mount Sumeru. It said that the best of the demigods with wives enjoy in the gardens near the lakes, while their glories are sung by the Gandharvas. And there's a mango juice river that makes the wives of the Yakshas fragrant just by drinking it. And there's also a section of Ilavrita Varsha where only females are allowed. You will read that in the 9th canto, where some kings try to inadvertently cross this region, and they find themselves and their horses all turned into females. This is a place where Lord Shiva lives in meditation of Lord Anantashesha, and he lives there with his wife Parvati. It is said also that this river that comes from the broken fruits of the jambu tree, it generates gold that is enjoyed by great demigods and wives. And this river has many benefits, like no wrinkles or gray hair. If you drink it, there's no fatigue ever. You have a fragrant perspiration, not afflicted by old age, disease, or untimely death. No suffering from heat or cold. Bodies are always lustrous, and no anxieties until death. So these are really heavenly regions. This is not just, we're not talking about a place where it's sort of like our earth. No, this is nothing like what we experience here, really. What is it so special about Bharatvarsha, though? Bharatvarsha is a place where you take birth according to your karma. Great personalities in the mode of goodness, ordinary humans in the mode of passion, and extremely abominable personalities in the mode of ignorance. There are unique spiritual opportunities that are not available in the heavenly regions, and therefore the demigods are aspiring to take birth here. We've heard that many times in many lectures. And we see that also that there's a parallel reality to this, there's a parallel heavenly aspect to this Bharatvarsha that we are not aware of. There's so many yagyas and so many things that Manu and other important personalities are said to have come here, to places like the Ganges and like that. But we don't see them. We just see like a very ordinary perspective of it. Now, below the earth, it is said to be the lower systems, Bilva Svarga, the underground heavens. If you ask the people who do Jyotish Shastra, right? The Jyotish Shastra tries to explain, the people who study Jyotish Shastra try to explain these lower planetary systems as chasms or openings in the earth. If you ask any geologist nowadays, is this possible? Are there chasms that we don't know about? Well, first of all, they'll tell you that we know less about what's going on underneath the earth than we know about the heavens. And second, they will also tell you that they do not believe that there are such big chasms that where these kind of things could happen, because you would have already seen it through the seismic waves. Whenever there's a big earthquake somewhere, there are waves that travel throughout the whole earth, and there are different machines that pick up on these around the whole earth, and there are different waves. The waves that are picked up, if there were chasms, they would show that in a specific way, and they have never seen that if there are big chasms. So these lower planetary systems, we can understand that are most likely in a different dimension, or again, they're not just, if you take your spade and you try to make a hole, you will not go there. You have to travel there by different means. But there may be some portals through the earth that get you there. This Bilva Svarga, you have to be careful not to confuse it with the hells. The Bilva Svarga are the subterranean heavens. It is said they are said to be more opulent than Divya Svarga, than the celestial heavens, more opulent than the Indra's palace and all that, because these people that live here are extremely materialistic. It is said that the sun, the rays of the sun never reach there. It's inhabited by the Danavas, by the Daityas, by the Nagas, all these people that don't want to submit to the Lord, and they're the Atala, Vitala, Sutala, Talatala, Mahatala, Rasatala, and Patala. So all of these are heavenly regions underneath. As I mentioned before, this Bilaswara can be reached by entering holes in the earth, but it is not just going through those holes. It is said that also that there's time shifts that happen in it. And in many cultures, for example, in the Mahabharata, in China, in Hawaii, they have been talking about these openings in the earth that take you to these heavenly realm places. And in Patala, for example, it is said that the shape-shifting Nagas have jewels in them that are the ones that are creating the light by which you can see in these underground heavens, because there's no natural light. Now, below this is Naraka, the hells. Yes, it is a place of suffering. It is ruled by Yamaraj, and justice is imparted there. People who have been very sinful in their lives, they go there and they suffer. But this is not an eternal suffering. That's important to note. It's not an eternal, unlike the Christian understanding, or the Judeo-Christian understanding that is forever. This is not forever, but you do suffer a lot. And there's very graphic descriptions that I'm not going to go into. And it is because of this description that Maharaj Parikshit becomes very concerned and asks, well, how can we prevent this from happening? And that's what takes you to the next canto. We're down here. There's also Pitriloka, which is actually a heavenly region down here. There's also another Pitriloka that is talked about, that is in the celestial heavens. And there's another Pitriloka somewhere else that I can't remember right now. But there are different heavenly regions. There are different Pitrilokas everywhere. Here is one of them. And you could say that these Pitrilokas are like the Christian out-of-body experiences. Maybe that's what the Christians are experiencing when they say, like, oh, I saw my father and he was waiting there for me, and like that. Maybe that's what they're experiencing. Maybe not, but this is one possibility. Generally, if you the Pitris there, you give them the pinda, you offer the pinda to them, and while somebody is still on earth offering them all of these yagyas, then they're able to stay there. Once that is done, then they have to come back down and take birth in that same family where they got those oblations from. And at the bottom there of the universe, we see that is Anantashesha. He is a multi-headed cobra-like serpent incarnation of Lord Vishnu. He is in charge of the false ego and tamaguna. At the time of annihilation, it is him who destroys by manifesting the Rudra, the 11 Rudras from his anger. And it is this Anantashesha, this incarnation of Lord Vishnu, that Lord Shiva is constantly meditating upon. It is said that he supports Bhumandala and on his head, which is like a mustard seed for him, and lives beneath these 7 lower planetary systems. Finally, there's the talk about the Shishimara constellation. This in these 11 chapters of the 5th canto. This constellation is said to be an incarnation of Vasudeva. It includes the 28 nakshatras plus additional stars, and is meditated upon yogis as the wheel of time. So it's an artifact so that they can think about time. And now I will go into actually trying to show you a framework for understanding this. How do we?
We have some questions related to this.
Okay, sure.
Continue, but make sure there, please, there are time for questions, because the questions we're talking about I think, tie into exactly your next section.
Yes. So I'll try to go quickly through here and then take questions as we go along. How do we understand all of this? Because it's very bewildering. Well, if you've ever heard of a stereographic projection, maybe yes, maybe not, but probably everybody has seen a projection map, right? If you take the Earth globe and you just squish it and like that, you get this projection map. This is a stereographic projection. And this is an astrolabe here. An astrolabe is a medieval analog calculator that is capable of, especially in our case, of identifying stars and planets. When somebody in the medieval ages wanted to know, when is the moon going to rise? When is Venus going to be in a place where I can see it? And where is it going to be in the sky like that? They used this thing that is called the astrolabe. Down here, there is the it's where you are. It's the planispheric projection of the Earth, and these different plates they will have the movements of the sun, the moon, the planets like that, and in that way you're able to calculate where on Earth down here you will be able to see the different planets. So Bhumandala, let me make a statement here. What I'm going to show you at this moment is the current understanding that the devotees at the BIHS right now have developed, having looked at many different models that have been developed over the years. Sariputta Prabhu developed some models, Dhanavir Maharaj developed some models, Pavaneshwar Prabhu developed some models. There are so many different models that have been developed over the years about Bhumandala to understand what it is. What I'm going to present to you here is what we have been looking at and how we're seeing. We've recently understood that there's an emergent picture that is coming up. There's an emergent picture that is coming up that is uniting these different understandings, and that is what I'm going to show you. But again, it's a current understanding. It is not the ultimate truth. What up to now I showed you was what the Bhagavatam says, and what I'm going to explain to you right now is how we are understanding it in context with what we're seeing, right? So with that in mind, what we believe that Bhumandala here is actually showing is an astrolabe understanding of the universe. The fifth canto description, I'm not talking about all of the Bhagavatam description of the universe, but at least this fifth canto description can be considered a practical way of understanding the universe. Why would Maharaj Parikshit need to know so much about astronomy? Right? He's going to die in 7 days. Maharaj Parikshit is going to die in 7 days. What is the most important thing that he needs to know about the universe? That is generally why did people in medieval ages want to know anything about astronomy? Because of the very practical application of astrology. When you know astrology, then you can know, oh, this is the best time for a yagya. This is the most auspicious time to leave your body. This is the time, when all of these things can be done through astrology. And for astrology, you need to know the placement of the different planets, right? And so these you will have Bhumandala, which is right here at the bottom, right? It is said that the sun is 100,000 yojanas above Bhumandala. The moon is 200,000. The nakshatras, the star systems, the constellations are 400,000 yojanas, like that, all the way up to Dhruvaloka. So it's giving you like the different plates of the astrolabe, right? And how does Maharaj Parikshit, how does Shukadeva Goswami use this Bhumandala astrolabe to explain to Maharaj Parikshit things? he uses it to talk about the sun's daily and yearly motion. He tells him this is how the sun and the year motion of the sun is according to this Bhumandala astrolabe. He tells him also the length of the day, how it changes throughout the year, how specifically in what ways it's shorter in the winter and it's longer during the summer. And he also uses this Bhumandala astrolabe as a way to tell him how the planets, according to their motions, have different influences. Like Venus is always auspicious. Mars is auspicious when it goes in this way, but if it goes retrograde, then it's inauspicious or in some way like that. And this is what you understand, from astrology. Astrology needs to know, as you can see here, where the different planets are going to be at different times. And you notice that this is a mandala, right? A projection. Now, what about that vertical dimension? This has been a headache for a lot of devotees for many years, and it's to understand why is the sun closer than the moon to Bhumandala, right? You notice here, the sun is said to be 100,000 yojanas. 100,000 yojanas, that's 800,000 miles. But according to modern physics, it should be 93 million miles away from us. And how is it that the sun is closer than the moon? And they asked Prabhupada so many questions about that. How is it possible that the sun is closer to the moon? And why, they couldn't understand. Well, if you understand it from the point of view of this astrolabe, then you will know that the heights are not necessarily physical. You're just talking about the different plates there. And actually, these heights seem to be more connected with astrology. For example, in astrology, which are the planets that are most influential for the astrological chart? The sun and the moon. Guess what? Those are the very first ones, right? Now, the nakshatras come afterwards because the nakshatras, according to the Bhagavatam, they are the wives. They're the wives of the moon god. And after the nakshatras, then you have Venus, Mercury, and Mars, which are the inner planets, and they describe a person's inner state of mind. And Jupiter and Saturn, they're said to be the outer planets that describe how a person, they describe more of a person's environment and the external influences, his social life, things like that. So this list here seems to be more connected with astrology than with a specific physical height. And we should also mention that this is not just your typical astrolabe, because Bhumandala is not just Earth. Here, this is Bharatvarsha, which is the southern most Varsha of Jambudvip, right? And if you take, according to Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, the commentaries by him and the commentaries by Sridhar Swami, they say that actually these descriptions of the humans here, taking birth according to their karma and all that actually happens only on the last of the 9 islands that Bharatvarsha is divided into. That last one has a diameter of 1,000 yojanas, which is actually the diameter of the Earth. So it's an astrolabe that is including a bigger reality. And why can't we see that reality, as I mentioned before? Because maybe there might be extra spatial dimensions. Maybe our minds can only perceive within a range of the modes. Or maybe we're just in a Kali Yuga lockdown where the demigods are, keeping us from putting our trash in their nice gardens. So thank you very much, and I welcome any and all questions that are going to start flowing from here.
Okay, we had some questions from chat. I'll give. Boy, you did that so quickly and so well. Thank you very much. we'll begin with the sun moves in Antarikshika from Lord Indra's place in east to Yama's place in south to Varuna's place in west to Soma's place in north. That makes one day of Devatas. But how does day and night happen on earth as per the Bhagavatam?
I thought we did that one already.
We did.
Okay.
Actually,
I said that for that one, I will need a couple of extra minutes because I have a couple of slides that do it. So
yeah.
I just want to know, is everybody okay with that? Because I know
let's
your
take the other
bandwidth
ones
at this
first.
moment.
Let's take the other ones first. There's some from Mukhi and from Dayananda Prabhu.
Okay.
Dayananda, he's left us, but I chatted with him privately and actually answered his question. But here's the question. I think the whole group would like to know, and you've talked about it. What do you think of Sariputa's theory that there are different perspectives of the universe? That is, from the view of modern scientists, yogis, Siddhantas, Puranas, Brahma, Bhagavan. He was saying that Sariputta said there are different ways of looking at it.
Yeah, the Bhagavatam has many different ways of looking at it. Each verse in the Bhagavatam doesn't matter. It has many different ways of understanding it, both grammatically and also in different contexts. That we're very much aware of. Yes.
Brahma Tirtha, can you find Nandi Mukhi's question? Because I know I don't have.
I have it in front of me.
Okay. Yeah.
I pasted all the questions into a document, so make it easier.
Okay.
When Lord Varaha lifted the earth from the Garbhodakshaya ocean, it refers to the planet Earth we live on, or to Bhumandala? Good question. Part 2. How do you locate planet Earth on Jambudvip? Is planet Earth only one of the 9 varsas in Jambudvip? Thank you.
Okay, so the first one. That's a very good question. I have been looking through the Sanskrit to understand exactly, what does it say exactly? Does it talk about, Bhumandala, or does it talk about, Bhugola, the round earth? What does it talk about? It says Kshiti Mandala. Which is like, okay, so it just says Kshiti, the earth. It never says a mandala, or it never says gola. It never says. So it's very ambiguous. In all of the places where he is said to be lifting, he says that he lifts the earth, the kshiti. And you go, well, what is this kshiti? Is it flat? Some commentators, such as Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, they have said, well, I think it must be the plane. It must be a plane. And so he said, but how could a plane fall down into the water if it goes all the way up to the edge of the universe? You understand that? If it goes all the way up to the edge of this round universe, how is it possible for it to sunk into? So he said, well, maybe the diameter is a little bit smaller, and in that way it can actually come into. That's one way of looking at it. Some other people, for example, Srila Prabhupada, he saw the paintings of Varahadev lifting the earth as a globe, and he accepted it. He said, like, to the disciples, okay, yes, that goes like that. And there are some others where in India, where you see Varahadev with a flat with a flat disc on his tusk. So is it one or is it the other? From what I just told you, our understanding is that this flat plane, this disc, is really a projection. It is really a projection of a higher dimensional reality. We're not talking about a literal plane. We're talking about a projection of a higher dimensional reality that is being used here as an astrolabe for the purpose of Jyotish, for the purpose of astrology. Now, what does it look like? You know, Bharatvarsha and Jambudvip and all of these other, what does it look like when you unproject it, right? When you do the reverse projection, what does it look like? We don't know yet. That is one of the things that we're researching right now at the Bhaktivedanta Institute for Higher Studies. If you unproject it, what will you see? Or if you were the Pandavas, if you were the Maharaj Parikshit, who was actually able to go through some of these different varshas, what would he see? Would he see like a bigger earth, you know, that we have no access to, or would he see like different worlds that are connected like through wormholes, you know, through portals? We don't know yet. We're looking into these possibilities at this moment. You're muted, Prabhu.
Now, some more questions.
Okay.
And by now, we assume everyone is getting spaced out. Okay, that was a bad joke. Physicists have shown that the entire universe could be represented by a holographic projection from a distant screen or plate. And that's from Andy. Any questions, any comment on that?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm working on with this professor at SUNY. that is my you know, research as a physicist. It's something very interesting, and there's a lot to look into that because of the many things that it has in common with the Sankhya philosophy. And hopefully in years to come, you know, we'll talk more about that connection.
Okay. We have another question. This one, a little more difficult. What are the approximate dimensions of the Rahu planet?
Rahu planet. I can't remember at this specific moment if the Bhagavatam gives the dimensions or not. Definitely in the Surya Siddhanta, it does. What the Bhagavatam does say is that, well, not the Bhagavatam directly, what Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur and Sridhar Swami say about Rahu is that Rahu is, if you look at this, it's actually between Bhumandala and the sun. It's, I believe, 10,000 yojanas below the sun. And so they say that because of that, the Rahu never actually eats the moon, because as it is said in some places, because it you know, the moon is 200,000 yojanas above Bhumandala, and Rahu is only 90,000 yojanas above it. But it could be said that the Rahu envelops, you know, it envelops the moon in darkness. You know, it swallows it in darkness. And so in that poetical way of saying it swallows it in darkness, you could say that it has eaten it.
Okay. I am going to unmute Nanda Mukhi and ask her to, I'm going to request that she ask her question on Dhruvaloka.
Okay.
Let me see where.
And ask her to speak loudly because she's very soft-spoken.
Okay, yeah, it's not working, so I'll read the question.
She can unmute herself.
Yeah. Oh, now she is. We're ready now.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, can you hear me?
Yes, definitely, Mataji.
Okay, thank you so much. So my question about Dhruvaloka is, like, how do we compare Dhruvaloka and the pole star? Because exactly on the slides which you are showing now, it said Dhruvaloka is above the Sapta Rishi, and this is actually within the Shishumara constellation, which is below the Dhruvaloka, which that is located at the topmost place within the universe?
Yes, if you notice that the Shishimara also has the nakshatras, right? It has the 28 nakshatras in it, and it has Dhruvaloka like that. So it is what we can say is that when the Shishimara is more of something that you can see directly with your eyes, and that's why it's it's a constellation, because you're able to see it from here. Basically, if you look at it from the point of view of all of these different plates, coming together, and then you see the big picture. It's not just located, on Dhruvaloka or just located on the nakshatras, because otherwise it wouldn't make sense. It's possible that most of the stars are, in a place that is in between, but the Shishimara constellation is made up of all of these different stars, and just as the different constellations that we see nowadays here, if you, for example, if you say them, even Saptarishi, the Ursa Major, right, the Big Dipper, all of the stars are not on the same plane. If you see, actually, they're on different distances from Earth, but from the point of view of Earth, they all look to be in the same, in the same plane, right? So like that, we can understand the Shishimara, that maybe all the stars are not in the same plane, but when you see it from here, they will all seem to be in the same plane. Does that answer your question?
Hare Krishna, thanks. Actually, I was about to ask, how do we compare Dhruvaloka to the pole star? Are they the same thing? Or is that the pole star is within the Shishimara constellation, whereas Dhruvaloka is way above the Shishimara?
Yeah, Dhruvaloka is it is part of the Shishimara constellation, because it's at the tail. It is said to be at the tail. But again, if you take it from our point of view here, if you look up into the sky, then all of it will become just one plane, right? You can't see the distances, the difference of distances between the stars from here, from the Earth. And from the point of view of a yogi who is meditating up there, looking towards the stars, he won't see the different distances. He won't say like, oh, this is so much closer than this one. No, he will just see, the whole constellation as in one plane, and that is the Shishimara constellation. So the different stars may be in different heights or different things from us, but when you see it from the point of view of a yogi looking up into the stars, they're all in the same plane. Does that make more sense?
Yes, thank you so much. I think I will stop here. Thanks.
We have a few more questions. We have two from Manoj. What is the key factor of a jiva entering into or taking residency of these different lokas? Punya or consciousness at the time of leaving the body?
I would say both. You have to have, certain acumen. You have to have, like if you want to go to the moon planet, you have to do so many yagyas. You have to do so many sacrifices to be able to get all the punya necessary for it. And you also have to, also have to have the desire to go there. That consciousness that this is the place where I want to be. So that's how you go anywhere in this universe. If you have the desire to go to a place, and if you have the cash, if you have that cash that will allow you to be there. I can desire to go to Satiloka, but if I don't have the punya to go there, I won't be able to go.
Next question. Garuda and Hanuman, in spite of being unalloyed devotees of the Lord, also reside in these lokas. Is it because they have some service there, or just that proximity has nothing to do with devotion to the Lord?
Uh, they have both again. They may be having some. It is said in the, what is it, in the Brihad Bhagavatam, right? It is talked about how Hanuman, when Narada Muni came to see him, he saw him. He was just like crying, and just like in a pitiful state of being, because he said that Lord Ramachandra had left him there in Kimpurusha Varsha, and he was just doing his service. And when they talked about, like, oh, maybe we should go and visit the Pandavas, Narada Muni became so excited and said, like, yeah, let's go visit the Pandavas, because they're such great devotees. But then Hanuman said, like, no, I have my service here. I have to stay here.
Well, a related question: how do the materialist people attain sub-heavenly kingdom, which you mentioned have opulence could be greater than Indraloka? Did they do pious activities?
Yes, this is connected to the previous question, two questions ago. Let's say that you have a lot of good, a lot of punya. You did a lot of pious activities, but your consciousness is such that you don't want to submit to God. There's a lot of atheists that are actually very good, ethical people, right? But they don't want to believe in God. They don't want to submit to Him. So what happens to them? Well, they get to enjoy, because that's the rule of the game. If you did pious activities, you have to enjoy. So where do they go to enjoy? Not in a place full of devotees, because they're, their mentality is not, I want to go, where everybody's, with God. So they will go to a place like the Danavas and the Daityas and all these. If you notice, Shukracharya, he's a spiritual teacher for these people, and they're doing yagyas so that they can get power, so that they can defeat the demigods. So they're very pious. Bali Maharaj, which he was giving a lot of charity, so that because it's very pious, and he will get a lot of strength in worshiping the Brahmanas. All of these things, they're pious activities, and with that you get more affluence.
Okay. I shall ask a question now. There's several more here, but I'll ask the question: how does all this discussion we're having today take us closer to Krishna?
Well, as I mentioned before, throughout all of this discussion, Krishna has been popping up again and again in all the questions, either through Hanuman, through Bali Maharaj, through Garuda, right? All of these things we've been talking about. Dhruva, we're remembering Dhruva Maharaj. We're constantly thinking about Krishna in different aspects here.
Okay. Let's go on.
BT, I have a question.
Please.
So my question is, it shows my level of consciousness. But, and either of you, or if Prishni's on the call, she could also reply. How do really intelligent people like y'all, how do you believe in mangoes the size of elephants, and and the Ganges coming down, and all the really, as we would say in the 70s, far out descriptions. So this whole class has been really going into these details of things, like a engineer would go into something. They obviously believe in whatever widget they're creating, and they're just trying to explain it. And you're also like explaining it like this is absolutely what's happening in the world, but we're just trying to figure it out. So how do intelligent people like you accept these, ocean of liquor, all the cool things that are mentioned? I mean, it's almost a personal question in one sense.
No, it's a good question. I'll give you my response. Probably Brahmatisa Prabhu and Mother Prishni might have others, but personally, I go, why not? You know, if you actually start looking at the world around us, like really looking, there are so many far out things, like absolutely wild. Look into what life is like in the lowest parts of the ocean. There are squids that are humongous. I mean, humongous, that they can wrap around a whale. There are animals that have you know, like abilities that we go like that's so weird. You know, we've never seen anything like that. What they eat, where they go, you know, it's just like amazing. Now, it's just that we are not constantly looking at these animals. You know, we're only in you know, we're living in big cities, right? Next to computers. So what is our understanding of the world, really? Go into a
Murali,
jungle.
why don't you present Sariputta's an analysis of walking down the street in a two-dimensional world with a three-dimensional building?
Okay. Yeah.
I think that helps with this.
And Prabhu's, I realize we're going overtime. If for those who have to go, of course, that's understandable. But I'm seeing that almost everyone has stayed on. Please continue.
One of the things that Sariputta Prabhu said was also the following. Imagine that you're told by somebody like, hey, you know, why don't you come and visit me at my penthouse? You know, I have a beautiful jacuzzi. You know, there's like this beautiful garden that I have there, and you know, all of these amenities. You know, come and visit me. And so he gives you the address, and you go to that building, right? That skyscraper. And you're in the first floor in the lobby, and you go like, well, I don't see any jacuzzi. I don't see like the big garden. Well, maybe there's a plant here, but that's not a garden, you know, is it? So well, you still have to take the elevator all the way up to the floor. So the address, you know, may be the same. You're in the same address. You're in exactly the same place. He gave you the right address. He didn't give you the wrong address. You can say like, I came here and I'm seeing something different. Why am I seeing something different? Well, because you have to take the elevator. You have to go into that third dimension to be able to access that penthouse. Otherwise, what you're going to see in the same place, in the same exact location that he gave you, what you're going to see is the lobby.
Which takes us back to earlier questions. Are there more dimensions than we could see? Certainly the string theorists such as Brian Greene, they can only resolve their cosmological views with multi-dimensions. That's probably beyond what we can get in today, but it's certainly an area at the BI we're writing about. I'm going to go now to Raghunandan. If you like, you can unmute and ask your question.
Yes, Prabhu, thank you so much. And thank you for this nice, wonderful presentation. It's a fascinating and interesting subject to me personally. And thank you for presenting it in a so detailed way. Thank you. From my readings and the presentation, it looks like there are multiple different perspectives that are being projected to the same thing, and not much information is provided from which reference point of view that perspective is being talked about. Because if you go back to the slide where you were talking about the Ganges coming down, the Dhruvaloka was in a different position, and there was another representation in that same slide that showed Dhruvaloka to be in a different level. So it gives me, or it leads me to think that it is two different perspectives of looking at the same thing, but it doesn't give me the information from what point of reference am I looking at it so that it looks in two different perspectives. So that's the first part of the observation that I had. And in this current slide, the vertical dimension that you have, Bhumandala is at where we are at, and then we have sun, moon, and the yojanas are given. These are not corresponding to the actual distances from the Earth planet, but they are still specifying some distances in yojanas. So what is the purpose of listing these yojanas? Is it like you go to that plane and then use that yojana to calculate where actually the place is? Just like you were talking about the physical location of the address, but once you have come there, then you have to figure out to what level I have to go to that penthouse to see the actual place. So is that something like that that's happening there?
Okay, those are very good questions. So let me see if I can get the first one. So your first question was from which point of view, right? If you notice here, I'm talking about Dhruva Loka. I'm going all the way up to Dhruva Loka here. The previous ones, let me see where is it? Where the descent of the Ganges. It actually follows the same one. The Dhruva Loka, you see here, Sapta Rishi, then it's Shani, which is Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, Mercury, Venus, the group of stars, which is the nakshatras, the moon, and the sun. Right now, there are some others below it that I didn't mention, but they are mentioned in the Bhagavatam later on, like Rahu, that is 10,000 years, and it's Siddha Charana Loka. So it is the same thing, but there are just more in here than I talked about. There's planets above here that I did not talk about, like Satyaloka, Tapaloka, Janaloka, Maharloka. These ones are not really talked about in the Bhagavatam itself, in the 5th canto, but we know about it because Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur mentions them, quoting from the Vishnu Purana. So this is still congruent with that other picture. It's the same picture like that. Now, from whose point of view is this being talked about, right? That's a big question. What is the point of view that the point of view, if you see, it's constantly Shukadev Goswami talking to Maharaj Parikshit in a very practical way for him, what he is able to experience. Everything there is about how he is able to experience the world like that. In Maharaj Parikshit's time, he was able to experience the different varshas. He was able to go to those different varshas. We can't do it nowadays, but he could. And constantly that's the point of view. Why does he talk about the pole star, and why doesn't he talk about the Southern Cross? The Southern Cross is like the pole star of the South. People in the Southern hemispheres, like in Australia, they don't see the pole star. What they see is the Southern Cross and everything revolving around the Southern Cross. Why doesn't he talk about the Southern Cross? He does talk about it in the 9th canto very briefly, but in the 5th canto, he is talking to him in a very practical way. So you, Maharaj Parikshit, you are here in India, right? In Hastinapur, which is modern day New Delhi, right? So I'm going to talk to you from your perspective. From your perspective, this is what it looks like.
We have some more questions. Let me bring up a totally non-controversial question. Regarding the often debated moon excursion, even India sent an unmanned mission recently. Has anything changed? Can you please say something also about the Van Allen radiation belt? I have some comments on that, but you go first, Murali, and then maybe I can add something.
Yeah, so we're not saying that you can't put, you know, probes and you can't go to the moon, you know, with these artifacts. You know, whether we actually did back in the 70s, something like that, I'll leave that for people to debate, right? Right now, we have been sending all of these probes there, and they have been looking at it. And again, you know, it's, what are they looking at? They're probably looking at the lobby. They're not looking at the penthouse. The moon is said to be a heavenly planet. It is said to be actually a water world. The moon is a heavenly planet that is a water world. Now, if anybody that with a telescope, they'll see, like, where's there water? You can't see any water like that. Well, what are you looking at, really? You're looking at the lobby. You're not looking at the penthouse. You have no access to the penthouse at this moment.
And I can give a personal example of this. I had the great fortune of going to Vrindavan recently, 2 Kartiks in a row, and getting to stay every day with Purajan Prabhu and Indradumna Swami and other great sadhus. And I spent many hours before going, doing a lot of reading and kind of trying to clear my consciousness. And I actually, while in Vrindavan, could understand the unseen hand of Krishna actually become somewhat visible. And it is a very mystical place. And I never had that experience in Vrindavan before, but I had to work hard to even get a little glimpse of it. Now, while I'm in Vrindavan, I'm watching these tourist buses come. And in Vrindavan now, before COVID, tourist buses were the thing, especially from Delhi. So people come on a tourist bus, they get out, take some pictures of sadhus, take some pictures of pigs, wander around a little, observe the curiosities, get in a bus, and leave. Could they possibly be experiencing the same Vrindavan I did when I'm getting intimate association with sadhus, when I spent 6 months preparing to go there? The answer to me was clearly no. They're not seeing the same Vrindavan I see. So when Prabhupada says to go to a heavenly planet, you need a qualification. I was just reading what Prabhupada was having I was just reading this yesterday, in fact, was having a conversation with a man saying, well, to go to the moon, you don't have the right body, so you have to spend $40,000 on a special suit because you don't have the right body to go there. You don't have a celestial body suitable for the moon. So you spend $40,000 on the suit and bring back a bag of rocks. What have you accomplished? What have you accomplished with your bag of rocks? So sometimes Prabhupada says we didn't go to the moon. Sometimes he says, what have you accomplished if you brought back a bag of rocks? I don't have any trouble reconciling it because in no way did they really go enter the moon atmosphere so have a suitable body. So if they went in a spacesuit or they didn't go in a spacesuit, that's not very relevant to me. That's the moon question. The second part of this question, I go back to Murali Gopal. Do you have any comments on the Van Allen radiation belt? Well, I have one comment I'll say first as a geologist. The Earth's magnetic field reverses every several 100,000 years. We're due for one now, and it does. The Van Allen radiation belt actually disappears. It will create an interesting suntan for the rest of us. But now I'll go to Murali Gopal.
Well, I mean, some people have problems with the Van Allen belt because they say, like, well, you know, once you leave it, you know, then, you know, you're going to get all of this radiation and like that, and, you know, how do you? There's a lot, but, well, you know, we create all of these different suits that could, you know, do something about it. Have we again? Did we do it back in the 70s or did we not? I don't know. You know, I'm not I'm not going to speculate on that because there's so much, you know, in the debate, you know, did we go, did we not? But could we create one right now? You know, it's possible that we could create one right now, and that's what, you know, people like Elon Musk are trying to do in order to be able to go to Mars and the moon and all that.
Okay, let's go on. We'll try to wrap up soon, but question: do the yojanas, do they refer to physical dimensions? Well, let me ask Manju to ask the question. I don't quite follow it. We will find you on here and unmute you.
Mantra Prabhu is his name.
Oh, okay. I just see the English name. Okay.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. I was asking the mentioned yojanas, are they the real physical dimension, are the sizes of the lokas or planets, or to the extent of their influence, like?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. That's one that we're still trying to answer for ourselves. So as I mentioned, the one way that we can understand these distances here are not necessarily, you know, not necessarily a physical dimension. Could be, but not necessarily, because you run into troubles. You run into the trouble of, well, you know, why is the sun closer than the moon? Why is the moon closer? You know, why are the nakshatras closer than Venus? All that it doesn't make any sense. But you know, in astrology, this sequence seems to make sense. And if you put it in terms of plates, one on top of the other, it also makes sense. So does it also, one possibility that we're also looking into right now, it's not, we're just investigating, is does it maybe tell you about, you know, another dimension, or does it tell you, for example, the degree of sattva guna? You know, could it be that as you go up this thing, the sattva guna is higher and higher until you get to Satyaloka, where it's the highest? We don't know. We're investigating that, but it's a good question.
Okay. Well, I'm going to do a few more questions. Let me see. Can you talk about time dilation?
Time dilation.
How does that work?
Yeah. So what I was speaking about here in this slide was that there might be time dilation. That means when people have gone to these other realms, for example, there's a story in China where somebody, you know, went through one of these holes and saw all of these beautiful women, and he was attracted, and then he decided, like, well, I can't stay here. I have to go back to my family and like that. So he went back after much difficulty, and when he went back, you know, everybody had already died. You know, he was still, you know, he had just left for a few days, but in his town, years and years had passed. So there's this time dilation that happened, so that he didn't just go and come back through normal ways, but when he went and came back, there was this time dilation that allowed him to live, you know, in a few days what other people lived in years. And it seems that many times also there's the story of King Kakudmi when he went to Satyaloka to ask to ask, well, which of these people that are down there, which one of them is suitable for me to marry my daughter? And he said, like, and Lord Brahma started laughing and said, like, all those people are already dead, and all of their generations and generations, they all died. You know, you can't even hear of their names nowadays. So that when you're traveling in between these different levels, these different plates, it seems that there's more than just you know, oh, let me take let me take a walk there. It's more than just three-dimensional displacement.
Okay. Let me see. We're going to finish up with 3 questions.
Could I show at least, because I feel bad that I didn't answer the question of what was his name? Sundar Prabhu?
Sundar Gopal. Go for it.
Yeah, let me just show you a little bit. You know, I'm just going to like browse through this, and later on, you know, we can talk about it afterwards if you want. The motion of the sun and like that. Shukadev Goswami talks about the yearly motion and the motion, the daily motion, and the way that he describes it is as the potter's wheel, because Maharaj Parikshit said, like, I don't get it. You said that the sun goes clockwise around Mount Meru, but you also said that the sun goes anti-clockwise around Mount Meru. How is that possible? He said, well, I'll explain to you through the potter's wheel. And he said, imagine that a potter's wheel is going like this, like clockwise, but that the ants are going counterclockwise. So the ants would be like the yearly motion of the sun going around Mount Meru, and this motion here is the daily motion of the sun. Now, how do we see it better? I'll show you here. The sun goes around the earth from this perspective, from this geocentric perspective, this projection perspective. It goes around the earth once every 24 hours, right? But as it does, it also starts traveling a little bit towards the inside and a little bit towards the outside. So that when it's in the winter, it's out here and it's going around in circles 24 hours like that. But when it's during the equinox, you know, it has traveled a little bit inside. And when it's further inside, it's now during the summer, and it goes like that. And I'll just give you a movie to show you. Do you see the sun out here? And it starts moving towards the inside, and now it's completely inside. Now it's the summer. And now it's going back out, And now this is the equinox here. And now here's the winter solstice. So that's how the motion of the, and by this you can also see that if you're out here, if you're in position B, you're going to be faster, and if you're in position A, you're going to be slower. Even though you're going at 24 hours, you're doing one turn in 24 hours. If you're out here in B, because you have to do this in 24 hours, you're going to be going faster. In A, you're going to go around here in 24 hours, so you're going to be going slower. Do you see that? And because of that, the Bhagavatam says that it has different speeds: low, high, and moderate. So I hope.
Is there any role in is there any role of Earth moving around the axis? Is that any role?
No, here the idea here is that you're looking at a projection. This is how it looks like from a projection point of view. If you unproject it, you're going to see what they tell you in school, that here's the sun in the center and here's the earth around it going like that. But from this projection, this is what it would look like.
Okay, we're going to have a few questions that maybe we don't get to. A couple I answered on the chat. One question was about time dilation, and in fact, Einstein did propose such a thing. The Bhagavatam beat him to it, but that's okay. We give him some credit. It was smart of him. And somebody asked about the correspondence of the planets in the orbits and dimension of the islands. That's some of the substance of Mysteries of the Sacred Universe. So we'll defer to that book on it, but it discusses in great detail on there. Last question is, Yes, go on.
I do have to leave now because I have I have a class right now. I said yeah I told them that I'm going to start at 12:30 because my class would go up to 12 o'clock only.
That's good because we went a half hour over. So I want to, on behalf of the Bhakti Vaibhava class in Washington D.C., thank Murali Gopal Prabhu, Brahma Tirtha Prabhu, Prishni Devi, and all the devotees for joining. And now you completely understand the fifth canto. So at least in the Bhakti Vaibhava class, I don't expect any more questions that I can't answer.
And let me say, you can go to our webpage, BIHS Studies, BIH Studies, Bhaktivedanta Institute for Higher Studies, and you can contact us. And if you like, we're going to put out a newsletter soon. Our first newsletter will be coming out. And I think our most popular column is tentatively named Ask a Nerd. And you can post your questions, and we'll do the best we can. And in this field, some of the best we can is we don't know. We're looking at it. And we're also always looking for volunteers who have good scholarly backgrounds to work with the BI. And you can privately write us. And if you want to write me privately, I'll post my email on here, and we welcome your questions and comments. Thank you very much. It's been a great pleasure for us to speak to such an audience with so many brilliant and smart questions, and people who have studied this and thought about it. I mean, I'm overwhelmed by the wonderful association I have. And I apologize to those questions that we didn't get to. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.